I never thought a few lines on my skin would be the reason my entire world crumbled. But here I am, sitting in an empty apartment wondering how I didn't see the red flags sooner. Was I really the villain for demanding basic respect? Or was I just a convenient excuse for someone who never actually loved me? I need you to listen to this and tell me honestly. Would you have stayed, or would you have walked away exactly like I did? My name is Maya, and for 3 years, I thought I had found the person I was going to grow old with. Marcus was charming, successful, and always seemed to know exactly what to say. We met at a mutual friend's gallery opening, and the connection was instant. He looked at me like I was the only person in the room. And for a long time, that was enough to blind me to everything else. But our relationship had a hidden expiration date that I didn't know about until the day he saw me at my most vulnerable. You see, I've always been a bit self-conscious about my body. A few years ago, I went through a period of rapid weight change due to a medical condition, and it left me with prominent stretch marks across my stomach and thighs. To me, they were scars of a battle I'd won, but in the back of my mind, I always feared how a partner would react. For the first 2 years of our relationship, I was a master of disguise. I wore high-waisted leggings, oversized shirts, and made sure the lights were always dimmed during our most intimate moments. Marcus never questioned it. He just called me mysterious and classy. But eventually the pressure of hiding became too much. We were planning a beach trip to celebrate our 3rd anniversary, and the thought of wearing a bikini, or even a one-piece in broad daylight filled me with a paralyzing sense of dread. I decided it was time to be honest. I thought that after 3 years, he loved my soul enough that a few silvery lines wouldn't matter. I remember the night I decided to show him. We were at his place, the atmosphere was calm, and I felt safe. I sat him down and explained my insecurity, my voice trembling. When I finally showed him, the silence in the room was deafening. He didn't hug me. He didn't tell me I was beautiful. He just stared, and then he let out a short, sharp breath that sounded like a mix of disappointment and disgust. He told me, quite literally, that he felt tricked. He said he had a certain standard for the women he dated, and that he felt I had misrepresented myself by hiding the damage. I was heartbroken, but instead of leaving right then, I did what so many people do when they're in love. I apologized. I spent the next few months trying to fix myself for him, buying expensive creams and researching laser treatments, while he became increasingly cold and critical. He started making jokes about my body in front of his friends, disguised as concern for my health. He would say things like, "Maya's great. She just has a little bit of a texture issue," and laugh while I felt like shrinking into the floor. The psychological toll this took on me was immense. I stopped eating certain foods, obsessively checking the mirror every morning to see if the marks had faded, as if they were some stain I could just scrub away. Marcus didn't help. He would leave brochures for cosmetic surgeons on the kitchen counter, just for me to browse. He started comparing me to the women he followed on Instagram, pointing out their smooth, filtered skin as the ideal he was used to. It wasn't just about the skin anymore. It was about his need to control and mold me into a trophy he could show off. I felt like I was losing my identity, becoming a project rather than a partner. Every time we went out, I felt his eyes scanning me, not with affection, but with a critical lens, checking if my outfit hid my flaws well enough to satisfy his ego. The turning point came when his sister, who is a fitness influencer, came to visit. She was everything Marcus valued. Perfectly toned, airbrushed in real life, and completely obsessed with aesthetics. During dinner, Marcus actually had the nerve to ask her, right in front of me, if there were any heavy-duty treatments for severe skin scarring, because his girlfriend was struggling with her appearance. I saw the look of pity on her face, and that was the moment I realized I wasn't the one who should be ashamed. He was the one who was ugly. He was the one with the flaw, and it was right in his heart. I sat there as they discussed dermal abrasion and chemical peels, like I was a piece of second-hand furniture that needed refinishing. The humiliation was a cold, sharp blade. I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, and saw a man who was terrified of anything real, anything that suggested life isn't a filtered photo. He was so shallow that he couldn't see the woman who had supported him through his promotion, who had stayed up all night when his father passed away, and who had loved him unconditionally. All he saw was texture. So there I was, sitting at that table, realizing that the man I loved saw me as a defective product rather than a human being. I had a choice to make. I could keep trying to earn the love of a man who found me damaged, or I could finally stand up for myself. I felt a surge of cold clarity. The more he talked, the more I realized that if it wasn't my stretch marks, it would have been a wrinkle in 10 years, or the way my body might change if we ever had children. He was a man who loved an image, not a person. I started remembering all the little comments he had made over the years that I had brushed off. Once, when we were watching a movie, he pointed at an actress and said she had let herself go because she had a bit of loose skin after having a baby. At the time, I thought he was just being opinionated, but now I realize he was warning me. He was telling me that his love was conditional. It was based on a version of me that was static, unchanging, and artificial. I realized that Marcus didn't want a partner. He wanted an accessory that would increase his social capital. When we went to his office parties, he would parade me around, but he always adjusted my dress or pulled my hair forward if it didn't look just right. I was a doll to him. And now that the doll had a defect, he wanted a refund. I began to feel a slow, burning anger replacing the sadness. How dare he? How dare he act as if he were some Greek god when I had seen him at his worst? I had seen him hungover. I had seen him fail. I had seen him cry when he didn't get a raise. And I never once loved him less for it. I loved his humanity, but he only loved my shell. I realized that if I stayed, I would spend the rest of my life in a cage of my own making, terrified of the natural process of aging. I would be 80 years old, and still trying to hide my wrinkles from the man who was supposed to be my soulmate. The thought was exhausting. I felt like I had been holding my breath for 3 years, and I was finally ready to exhale. But I wasn't going to go quietly. I was going to make sure he understood exactly what he was losing. I was going to show him that the damaged girl was the strongest person he would ever know. I began to plan. I started by documenting every single interaction we had where he belittled me. I kept a journal of the helpful tips he gave me on how to hide my body. I saved every text message where he called me lazy for not seeing a surgeon yet. I even started taking pictures of the beauty supplies he would buy for me, bleaching creams, heavy foundations, and abrasive scrubs that left my skin raw. I was building a mountain of evidence. I wanted to see if he would ever stop, if he would ever realize how much pain he was causing. But he didn't. He only got worse. He started inviting his perfect friends over, and making me the butt of the joke, knowing I wouldn't defend myself in public. He thought he had broken my spirit. He thought he had made me so insecure that I would never leave him because I would think no one else would want me. That's the classic narcissist move, isn't it? Make the partner feel worthless so they stay. But he underestimated me. He forgot that before I met him, I was a woman who had overcome a major health crisis. He forgot that I was a fighter. He forgot that the very marks he hated were proof of my resilience. Before I tell you how I handled the breakup and the gift I left for him, I want you to pause right here. Look at the situation. He spent 3 years with me, loved my personality, loved my mind, but the moment he saw my skin, he changed. Tell me in the comments, was I wrong for hiding it in the first place? Or is he a complete monster for his reaction? What would you have done if you were sitting at that dinner table? Would you have walked out right then? Or would you have waited to deliver a more calculated blow? I decided that if he wanted perfection, I would give him exactly what he deserved. I didn't cause a scene at dinner. I played the part of the quiet, insecure girlfriend for 1 more week while I made my arrangements. I knew Marcus's biggest insecurity wasn't his body. It was his reputation and his ego. He prided himself on being a good guy and a protector. I spent those 7 days documenting everything. I recorded his jokes. I saved the brochures he left for me. And I even took screenshots of the messages where he told me I was unmarketable as a long-term partner if I didn't fix my skin. I was building a file, not for a lawyer, but for the court of public opinion that he so desperately worshipped. I waited until he was at a high-stakes work event, a gala where he was being recognized for his contributions to his firm. I didn't go as his date. Instead, I sent a courier to his office that morning with a very special package. It wasn't a breakup note. It was a framed photo of me at the beach, in a bikini, unedited and proud. with a caption that read, "Finally realized my marks are more permanent than your love. Don't worry about the damage anymore. I've moved on to someone who sees them as art." But I didn't stop there. I reached out to his sister, who, as it turns out, actually hated how shallow he was and had been struggling with her own body image issues behind her perfect Instagram facade. She helped me post a series of photos on my social media about body positivity, tagging the brands he worked with to talk about real beauty. We did a joint post where she admitted that even her perfect skin was a result of lighting and editing, and she praised me for being brave enough to live authentically. By the time he got home from his gala, his phone was blowing up, not with praise for his work, but with questions about why his girlfriend was suddenly a viral sensation for leaving a toxic, body-shaming partner. His colleagues had seen the tags. His boss, who prided the firm on its progressive values, was less than impressed. He tried to call me, screaming that I had ruined his image, and that I was being dramatic over a few comments. He claimed I had taken his helpful advice out of context. He was panicking, grasping at straws, trying to turn the narrative back on me. He said I was crazy and unstable, but the evidence I had saved told a different story. I had the recordings of him laughing at me. I had the texts of him calling me disgusting. I told him that the only thing unstable was a man who based his entire identity on the texture of someone else's stomach. I didn't argue. I simply told him that if my skin was too much for him to handle, then his fragile ego was definitely too much for me. I blocked him on everything and moved out while he was still trying to damage control his social media presence. I took everything, even the expensive coffee maker I'd bought him for his birthday. I left the apartment empty, just like his heart. I moved into a small studio on the other side of town, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was hiding. I started going to the local pool. I started wearing shorts in the summer. I stopped looking for the correct angle in photos. The aftermath was messy, as these things always are. He lost a few minor sponsorships and his perfect guy facade was cracked for good. He tried to send friends to talk to me, trying to negotiate a public reconciliation to save his career. They told me he was sorry and that he didn't mean it. I laughed. I told them to tell him that no amount of laser treatment could fix the rot in his personality. He even tried to write a public apology on his social media, claiming he was growing and learning, but everyone saw through it. The real victory wasn't his downfall, it was my own rise. I started a small community for women who had been shamed for their bodies, and the support has been overwhelming. I've met people who have been through the same thing, women who were told they were less than because of scars, weight, or age. Together, we've built something that Marcus could never understand. A space where worth isn't measured in pixels or smooth surfaces. I've heard stories that would make your heart ache. Women whose husbands left them after they gave birth because they had stretch marks. Girls who were bullied by their own mothers for not being thin enough. My community became a sanctuary. We hosted no-filter workshops and body story nights where we shared the history of our scars. I realized that every mark on my body was a testament to the fact that I had lived. My stretch marks were from a time when my body had to stretch and grow to accommodate a change in my health. They were symbols of survival. And Marcus wanted me to be ashamed of my survival? What a small, pathetic little man. I eventually met someone new, a man named Leo. On our first beach trip, I was nervous, but I didn't hide. When he saw me, he didn't recoil. He didn't even mention it until I brought it up. He just looked at me and said, "Maya, I love you because you're you. Why would I care about lines on your skin?" That was the moment I truly healed. I realized that the problem was never my body. The problem was the person I chose to share it with. My life is so much louder and brighter now. I wear what I want, I go where I want, and I don't dim the lights for anyone. I look at my stretch marks now and I don't see damage. I see strength. I see the fact that I am a human being who is allowed to change and age and evolve. I am not a static image on a screen. I am a living, breathing, imperfectly perfect woman. Looking back, I'm glad he reacted the way he did. It saved me from spending a lifetime with someone who only loved the wrapper and never cared about the gift inside. I would have wasted my best years trying to please a ghost of a man who didn't even know what love looked like. I would have missed out on Leo. I would have missed out on the community I built. I would have missed out on myself. The moral of this whole mess is simple. Someone who loves you will never make you feel like you have to apologize for existing in your own skin. If they treat your vulnerability like a secret to be ashamed of, they don't deserve a seat at your table. Your body is the least interesting thing about you, and anyone who thinks otherwise isn't worth a second of your time. Don't ever let someone's shallow standards become your internal voice. You are a masterpiece, lines and all. Your value is inherent, and no one, not a partner, not a parent, not a stranger on the internet, has the right to tell you otherwise. Stand tall in your own skin, because that is the most beautiful thing you can ever do. Like this video if you were on my side and think Marcus got exactly what he deserved. Subscribe for more stories like this where we call out the toxic people in our lives and celebrate finding our own strength. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. Have you ever dealt with a partner who tried to change you? And how did you find the courage to leave? Your stories might help someone else who is currently sitting in the dark, afraid to show their true self. Let's build a community of strength together. I'll see you all in the next story.